It is orange and blue today on a Friday in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine, where we are for one more day, mate. We didn't kill each other during this week. We're actually getting along fabulously. You see it on the show, but behind the scenes, we have a great time and some very nerdy conversations.
Yes, nerdy conversations such as discussing the lines and the character of Reek Olay from Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace.
And what happened to Captain Panaka? We can talk about it all, in addition to what we talk about with football. So yeah, man, it's been a great week. It's been a week where we've learned a lot. And we're going to have a special OBT2 show for you that'll air on Friday night. We're going to let you know everything that we learned. But this show's about Ashton Jeanty and what we
and the
learned.
running backs, like
and
in
the running
general.
backs, yes.
Starting with Jeanty, like
yes.
And really, for the Broncos, it's like the search starts with the clear RB1 in this class. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fair to say that Ashton Jeanty, we can talk about the value of other running backs and say, okay, is it worth the cost of moving up? Is he the difference between Jeanty and Hampton, Jeanty and any of the other backs, is it worth the cost of moving up in the draft and what you would have to sacrifice? But Jeanty is RB1. He is the belle of the ball when it comes to the running back position.
Yes.
And he had, would you say he had a bigger crowd than Shedeur Sanders, or about the same today?
Probably about the same. And full disclosure, Shedeur was talking the same time as Cam Ward, but Ashton was talking the same time as Omarion Hampton.
But there wasn't nearly the crowd for Omarion Hampton as there was for Ashton.
Okay,
Jeanty.
so it might have been larger than for Ashton. I was at the front row.
Much larger crowd for Ashton Jeanty. Like,
yes.
I was over at Omarion Hampton. It was pretty comfortable for him.
And then Ashton might be larger than what we saw for Shedeur, but you got me a front row spot, and then I just stayed there for 3 hours.
Because I was there for Shedeur. I took the bullet and got in position for Shedeur Sanders.
Right.
Which, you had to kind of be uncomfortable. I also was in position for Tez Johnson. By the way, Tez Johnson, the wide receiver from Oregon, Bo Nix's brother, had an interview with the Broncos, a formal interview. Now, do the Broncos have a need for a small 155, 156-pound wide receiver? No. Do you think this was a courtesy interview, or do you think this was actually they're considering him?
If Tez Johnson, based on his Senior Bowl buzz, goes off the board in the second or third round, I just don't see how the Broncos can justify that with all their needs. So kind of a courtesy to Bo Nix's brother, knowing that someone else is likely to get that playmaker.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got to drop for the Broncos. Drop at least to round 3. I mean, I think you've got to see the primary needs taken care of, whether it's in free agency or the draft, before you really can have the Tez Johnson discussion,
right?
Unfortunately. But the thing is, he does get separation, he does get open. It's
always open.
That's why, the 7-Eleven, as we say, always open. That's why I kind of go back to the Hunter Renfrow conversation of a few years ago, where you say, okay, he's got small hands, he doesn't have great time speed, he's small, yada, yada, yada. But he keeps getting open, and lo and behold, before injuries caught up to Hunter Renfrow, he had a pretty good career, and he kept getting open, and he kept causing problems for opponents. So
yes,
that's sort of the thing that you have to go by. Okay, if this guy keeps getting open, there's something to him, even though you can still say, all right, maybe there's a shelf life on him given his size.
Well, you mentioned falling in the draft. Can Ashton Jeanty fall to the Broncos at 20? Our buddy Chris Thomason, who's a legend, by the way, OG of OGs, had no problem talking to Ashton Jeanty and being like, hey, the Broncos are 20. You think you're going to fall that far?
I would hope I don't fall that far, but, if that happens, I wouldn't have no problem playing for the Denver Broncos.
So, yeah, there was his answer.
I like the confidence, and it's also being realistic. I mean, he's having conversations with the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Raiders pick number 6 overall. And by the way, every team with whom he talked and when he referred to the meetings, he described it as great. Said the meeting with the Broncos was great. The meeting with the Raiders was great. The meeting with the Bears with Eric Bieniemy, now their running backs coach, was great.
Yeah.
So
The meeting with Sean Payton, though, that didn't happen.
well, Sean Payton wasn't there. There was a meeting with the Broncos, and Sean Payton, according to Ashton Jeanty, wasn't there.
Yeah. So pretty good source on the situation. He
Source
says,
Ashton Jeanty.
yes, source him, because when asked about the Broncos by Chris, I had to follow up. Don't make fun of my question, because it was literally like yelling to get your spot in for Ashton because it was so busy. So I was like, what about Sean Payton? What about Sean Payton? And this is what he said here.
He actually wasn't in the meeting, but I met with the running back coach and some other people on the staff and scouts. But it was really great. We broke down some tape and them sort of things, and talked about how they had a need for a running back.
Now, a couple of things here. First of all, where might Sean Payton have been? Maybe he just had to take a phone call, whatever.
These meetings are about 20 minutes,
Yes,
right?
15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay.
15 minutes.
So Sean Payton wasn't there. Why?
I don't know for certain.
Some head coaches aren't here.
Well, that's actually not only some head coaches aren't here, some staffs aren't here.
Right.
Like famously, the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah.
Sean McVay's not here. His staff's not here.
Right.
Which is interesting because you could argue the Rams are maybe making the most news of anybody here.
Right.
We'll get into that on OBT too because it indirectly affects the Broncos in the AFC West. But, the Broncos are a team that sends a fairly full contingent out here.
Yes.
At least for now. Like, remember Vic Fangio didn't bring his assistants out here a few years
That's
ago.
right. That's right. Yes.
And that was the subject of some consternation among the staff. Didn't go over very well.
Right. So now Sean Payton wasn't at the Ashton Jeanty meeting, although the Broncos did hold it with him. It's not everything. It's not nothing. It's somewhere in between. At the end of the day, they could still have a flirty-30 visit with him. At the end of the day, they could go to Boise State's Pro Day and have a private workout with him. At the end of the day, to me, Mace, it doesn't move the needle for me. Sean Payton wasn't there. We know that based on, and I was hoping, you had mentioned last year when we talked to Spencer Rattler and stuff about the way Sean Payton will test you. I was hoping we'd get some of that, but we did get some information about that Broncos meeting. Sean wasn't there.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, but it's also, perhaps a different dynamic with running back, but also perhaps maybe they've got a plan to do the day after workout and time with him, and that will take care of crossing off that item on the checklist. And also it may be sort of reflecting the reality of the situation that perhaps it's a little bit of a pipe dream to get Ashton Jeanty unless you're willing to make the audacious move up, which would require sacrificing future draft capital with which it's probably not wise to part with. I mean, look, if it's a reasonable cost, I think then you have the conversation.
Yes.
But if we're talking about sacrificing a future one, and let's say you guys sacrifice your 1 and your 2 next year to move up, I don't think that's something you necessarily want to do.
No. And it's a difference if you're moving up. Let's say the Raiders don't take him at 6, and right there at 7 is Darren Muji and the Jets. Moving to 7 is a lot different move than moving to the Falcons or the Cardinals, 15 and 16, I believe, top of my head, respectively. That's a much different move. 5 spots compared to, don't make me do math, 13 spots. That's a big difference in that draft calculator, regardless of how great your relationship is with the new GM of the Jets, Darren Muji, former Denver Broncos executive. That's still a big move into the top 10 if you're the Broncos.
Well, let's just do the Jimmy Johnson draft model since that's the one with which everybody is
I like that.
most familiar. The Cardinals are sitting there, pick 16. We'll do the Falcons. You mentioned them, pick number 15.
Okay.
Because, the Bengals are at pick 17. That's a team you may have to jump perhaps for a tight end. Atlanta's pick 15, 1,050 points. Broncos at number 20, 850 points. So on the draft value model, that's a 200-point difference. That's the equivalent of the number 78 overall pick. The Broncos have the 85th overall pick. So you're probably talking about a third-round pick and a sixth-round pick. If you want to have a straight, very balanced trade, you're probably looking at a sixth-round pick and a third-round pick, which would actually, and if the Broncos trade their 193rd overall pick, that would actually add up to 14 plus 2 plus 165. That's 179.5 plus. That'd be pretty close. It might take 2.6. Maybe it involves a fifth next year. If you want to push it over the top, you'd say fourth round pick, and maybe that's where you start doing the balance and say, okay, if you send them a fourth, that's 52. So that's 52 plus 165. Then you're at two. Then it's 217 plus 850. So then you're sending them 1,067, and you're getting back 1,050. So maybe it's a 3. You're a 3 and a 4, and you're getting back 6 to move up 5 spots.
Right. Moving around is fine. Moving to 7, much larger story.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of hurdles. We'll talk more about the Raiders and what they didn't get. That's on OBT2. Make sure to check that out. 9 p.m. YouTube and on his Twitter and Denver Sports Twitter. But the other thing is, you move up to 7 because the Raiders hurdle has been passed. The other one is 12 in the Dallas Cowboys. We talk about moving to 15 or 16. Here's the thing, and again, it doesn't mean everything, but it doesn't mean nothing. As of yet, as of this recording on Friday, Ashton Jeanty did not meet with the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Because every reporter's, did you meet with the Cowboys? No.
Interesting.
What would you like to do in, playing for the Cowboys? That was the guy's follow-up question. How would you like to play for the Cowboys? Of course, I love to play for anybody, whoever drafts me, blah, blah, blah. But Ashton Jeanty said in his first meeting was with the Denver Broncos. As of this recording, he has not yet met with the Dallas Cowboys, and that's interesting, Mace.
Yes. What do you think that means, though?
I haven't talked to him yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Dallas. They could get crazy. They could just re-sign Rico Dowdle coming off a 1,000-yard season who's a free agent. And the streets are going to be cold, man. If you're Aaron Jones or Rico Dowdle or Nick Chubb or any of these free agent running backs, don't think you're going to break the bank this year because of this really big running back class staring at you. And it's interesting to note, as we talk about more running backs, because I was able to stay at Podium 8 and talk to Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State, Ole Miss transfer, and talk to Travion Henderson from Ohio State. Both backs said they had talked to Chip Kelly, their former OC,
now
with the Raiders. So the Raiders are talking to both those Ohio State backs, and we'll see if they decide to wait on back and then maybe draft Judkins or Henderson.
Or both.
Great backs. So both would be, there's your committee right there. I mean, we talk about this team needing Kamara and Ingram. That's kind of those two guys right there.
The Buckeye-Raider connection may be one to watch in this year's draft.
Okay.
I mean, it would not at all shock me if the Raiders did try to get both of those backs.
Yeah.
Because Chip Kelly showed how to use them effectively at Ohio State.
Oh,
I mean, obviously to
dangerous
maximum effect given the national championship with which they walked away. So,
Right.
Yeah, but more on the Raiders in the other show because
they made a decision. Decision was made for them.
Yeah, you're breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief if you're the Broncos today about how things happened.
Yes.
Now, beyond Ashton Jeanty, we know that they've talked with 10 running backs here. Weren't able, couldn't get to everybody today. The way the combine is structured.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's 11 running backs talk at once. So they're all at podiums. It's not the way it used to be. When did we go to this format? It was about 26.
It was Christian McCaffrey's year.
So that'd be 2017, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
that
2017.
was McCaffrey's year. Yeah, they went to 8 podiums and then a couple tables.
We used to go. It was 3 podiums and then about 4 or 5 tables.
And if there was one big guy, it was the one guy at the podium, like Andrew Luck, like Tim Tebow.
Yeah. and they did them separately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was nice.
So
we had to make choices. He had to be at Hampton. I had to be at Jeanty because we had to make choices. So, and then you float around. How many podiums did you end up at today?
Well, I tried to go to as many. I went to Cam Scadaboo, asked him if he'd talked with the Broncos. His answer was yes, he did have a formal meeting with the Broncos.
Okay.
Based on our comment section that we've seen over the last few weeks, the Broncos having a conversation with Scadaboo, I think, is going to make people happy.
Very happy, yes.
Jordan James of Oregon, he had a formal meeting with the Broncos. Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State, the Oak Walker Award winner in 2023.
Okay.
He had a meeting with the Broncos. Of course, mentioned O'Marion Hampton. Travion Henderson, we think he did, but he didn't really give you the
you've heard the
clearest
answer,
of
right?
answers.
And
yes.
I'm perhaps asked it wrong, but again, trying to get it in for Travion, with all the Ohio State media, as we've talked about there, I gave him a double question, which is awful. But I said,
Try not
hey,
to do that.
has anyone said you remind him of Alvin Kamara, and have you talked with the Broncos? And so he goes, yeah, well, and I've talked to the Saints too. And Alvin Kamara, he's a ball. So I was like, wait a second. Are you talking about Kamara with the Saints or so?
When you say you give the double question, I can hear Megan Boyle, one of the PR staffers from the Broncos, on a conference call saying, please limit your thoughts to just one question.
Just one question,
and of
please.
course, some in the unruly media core that is the Denver media core. I wasn't going to name names.
Hey, Chris does it.
Yeah,
Troy does it.
I wasn't going to name names.
I'll do it.
Oh, fine, you do that, whatever.
Okay.
I wasn't going to name names, but there are some that, yes, don't follow that rule. And
rule. Double questions usually don't get great answers, but I think I might have confused him.
Yeah.
So I hope he talked to them because of all the backs in this draft not named Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah.
I've labeled Travion Henderson as the most Kamara-like. I prefer Devin Neal. More of a Joe Mixon, his description. But Travion Henderson has Kamara skills, but when asked about his favorite backs, he didn't list Kamara. Yeah. He listed Christian McCaffrey as one, Jahmyr Gibbs as one, I would say as a he's in that range of a Gibbs. He's got some skill like that to his game for sure.
All right, let's talk about, for my money, one of the most fascinating running backs in this draft class.
But is he a running back?
It's a good question because he wasn't a running back until last year when he showed up at SMU. The intra-conference transfer that we see a lot more of now.
Yeah.
Because the conferences are
supersized
and it's
everything.
The Wild West. Yeah. College football's stupid. Our dumbest sport. But
this answer. You've been very fascinated by this answer. I'm curious. I haven't heard from Brashard Smith yet. You did as you.
Well, I'm fascinated by Brashard Smith. Period. I mean, I've since Senior Bowl watching the way he moved and watching his vision. Like, for someone who's only been a running back effectively for a year, his vision is pretty remarkable. Which is also another thing. Vision you can't coach.
No.
It's sort of like, what's the most important thing? Is it vision or footwork? What TD says.
Yes.
Footwork.
No, I say footwork. TD says vision.
I'm
not going to argue with Terrell Davis.
I'm sorry. I'm a vision guy. Respectfully to you. Yes.
You and TD are vision guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's feet. You got to have the feet to get there. You can see it.
And you can't coach either, but real vision is like that's. And unfortunately, vision is one of the reasons why Javonte Williams, once he lost some of that burst after that horrific knee injury, it's why he couldn't get back because he didn't have great vision to begin with. Melvin Gordon had better vision. Javonte Williams had better burst.
Yes.
In 2021, they took two paths to the same destination, basically. They got there in different ways. So Brashard Smith has vision. He's got pass catching ability because he has that background as a receiver. Although, as a running back, he actually had more receiving touchdowns this past year than he ever had as a wide receiver at Miami. He had 4 touchdown catches this past year. He had 2 in 2023, 2 in 2021. So, had a chance to ask Brashard Smith about his meeting with the Denver Broncos that he had. It was indeed a formal meeting, and then I asked him a follow-up question, and so actually a couple of follow-up questions here. So here's that exchange that we had this morning.
I would say it was pretty good. Just going over their offense and going over just what they see in me and how they can use me in their offense. So it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Yes, just making plays, just coming out the backfield, moving out. I can move out to receiver, move around, just moving around stuff. I feel like they pride that a lot. I feel like that role is the biggest role now. I feel like nowadays in the NFL, you have to have a back that can catch and run out the backfield. I feel like that's just the new wave of running backs now. So, yes, sir.
I asked that. I didn't use the term joker.
Yes.
Just someone who's more of a pass catcher.
But he said it's the new wave.
The new wave.
So now I'm thinking flock of seagulls.
Wave of the future, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. That is. But it is right. I mean, running backs have to be receiving threats because you're influencing the defense by showing them in the backfield, but then having them actually run routes. When Jahmyr Gibbs was picked, some were shocked because, like, what are they doing? What they're doing is adding a playmaker. And Brashard Smith, as any SMU fan will tell you, is a playmaker, to be sure. But is he a running back? He's one of the players that was asked to work out also as a receiver, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And look, the other thing is also, I mean, he's 5'9", 195. So that's where, if you draft Brashard Smith, the question is he sturdy enough to be getting a joker level of touches? Which, as we've discussed with Alvin Kamara, the joker is going to touch the ball 200 to 240 times ideally, right?
Sounds good.
200 to 250, which actually it does sound like a lot, but then you actually take that on a per game basis, and it's about 14 touches a game. Okay?
That's very reasonable.
Right. Can he handle that? Because we've seen Jaleel McLaughlin a little shorter, a little lighter. That's probably a bridge too far. The ideal thing for Jaleel is probably about 5.
7 maybe?
5 to 7. So that's not joker.
No.
Okay?
No.
I mean, is Brashard Smith of a sturdy enough build to handle the joker workload of 10 to 15 touches a game? That's a question I think you have to answer. If he can, and he can show you enough in pass protection, because you've got to be the complete back, which means you can't be a tell. You've got to be able to handle pass pro. That was the conversation that I had with a couple of people immediately after that interview. Was he's intriguing, but at his frame, is he going to be able to handle pass pro? Because if he can, then all right, then you can talk about him filling that joker role. If not, then he's just kind of that third running back gadget type.
And what was interesting when talking with Trevion Henderson, when people would say what do you want to show scouts? Okay, show scouts. But what would you want to work on? Henderson said pass pro.
Yes.
Got to prove that it's not selfish. I care about more than when I just have the ball.
Yeah.
So you love that answer.
See, somebody like R.J. Harvey, okay, out of Central Florida, he's shorter than Brashard Smith, of course, because he's 5'8", but he's 207. Mm-hmm. So he's about an inch and a half shorter, and he's 12 pounds heavier. So he's a good receiving back, but he's also sturdier, so he should be able to handle pass pro, even though he's short, because he's got that stocky build. He should be able to hold up better in pass pro.
Yes.
Than Brashard Smith can. And that's part of the reason why I think Daniel Jeremiah pointed to Harvey as, okay, this is a potential day 2 type of Joker back.
Yes, they are out there.
By the way, why do people hate that term?
People hate the term?
People are like on social media, there's a thing that people don't like that term.
They don't like Joker?
Yeah.
Well, then you don't like football. There's Jokers on defense, too, sometimes called rovers. But it's like, huh? Isn't there enough wrong in this world without you being like, I'm offended by Joker?
There's a lot wrong in this world. More goes wrong every day.
Let's concentrate on what really matters. Finding the Broncos a running back that, yes, is going to be called the Joker. As I often say, Mace, get as offended as you like.
I actually like the suggestion you had because Marvin Mims Jr. is a different type of contributor because he's smaller. The Joker works on the inside part of the field primarily. Marvin Mims, you want him outside the hash marks and mostly outside the numbers, sweeping out there. And that's the Riddler.
Riddler,
Yeah.
yes. We'll go through the entire Batman villains.
I'm sorry. I had a thought to a Simpsons joke, like when they basically treated Radioactive Man as their version of Batman, and so they had the campy 60s version of Radioactive Man, which was like the
Adam West
version of Batman. And there's one episode like, oh, the worst villain of all, the Scoutmaster.
Oh, there we go. That's what you learn on Orange and Blue today. We've got an OBT2 coming up for you, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Again, 9 p.m. Mountain Time. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on @MaceDenver and then @DenSports1043. That's our company Twitter handle there as well. Mace, are we done for this show and going to record our next show? You ready to wrap this one up?
Yeah, we're going to wrap up and talk about what we learned at the Combine. We shared a little, some of what we learned. There's more to discuss about what we learned and unpack all that here as we prepare to take flight from Indianapolis after another NFL scouting combine. How many is this for you, by the way?
I think it's 10.
10? Okay. So you've done more Senior Bowls than
Yeah.
combines.
19 in a row for Senior Bowls. I've done 10 combines starting in Tebow's year.
Okay.
But not consecutively, obviously, because it's been more than 10 since Tebow in the league.
This was because there wasn't one in 21, and I didn't go in 09. This was my 21st.
Wow.
I've spent months, I've spent 3 months of my life in downtown Indianapolis. Time for the Combine and then here covering Broncos games. There's like one apartment in my life for which I signed a lease I didn't spend that much time in. So I know downtown Indianapolis pretty well by this point.
Let's go to him for all the spots.
I probably know downtown Indianapolis better than downtown Denver at this point.
All right, Mason, before we're out of here for this show, how can folks help us out on YouTube?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you never miss a vid. Boom. You're going to have to hit the end button. Anyway, he's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials, @MaceDenver. I'm @Cecil Lammy saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Would you please stay frosty?